Help it. From purposefully infecting people with STDs to developing the perfect poison, we look at 15 horrific human experiments. Number 15. Stanford Prison. What happens when you take a bunch of students and play prison down in the psych building's basement? A bunch of fucked up shit. Stanford University conducted an experiment to observe the psychological behaviors of students acting as guards and prisoners. Turns out giving students just a teeny tiny bit of imaginary power turns them into complete sadists. But who could have seen that coming? Frats and sororities treat each other so well. 2 students were removed for suffering psychological trauma, and eventually the experiment was deemed too fucked up for such a fancy pants university.
They were so mean. It was so horrible. It's like the time my mom took my cell phone away. Like, oh my god, I totally know how Aunt Frank feels now.
Number 14. Project 4.1. Back in the dawn of the atomic age, the USA were testing nukes like they were candy, but surely they were responsible about it, right? Well, it turns out there were a few small islands downwind from the famous Bikini Atoll site that were being exposed to just a teeny tiny bit of fallout, and instead of warning them, the US military saw it as a great way to just sit on back and see what radiation did to people. Doesn't take a nuclear physicist to tell you what happened to the islanders, with side effects lasting for generations. But hey, at least they learned that fallout is bad. The only fallout humans should be exposed to is on a games console. Oh god, that hurt me to just read that out loud. Why? I'm starting to think I'm part of a fucked up experiment now. Can puns cause a man to kill himself? Stay tuned to Danger Dolan to find out. Number 13. J. Martin Sims Gynecological Operations. Take the father of gynecology and the racist attitudes of the 19th century and you have a recipe for terrible atrocities against other humans. Treating slave women who had suffered trauma to their genitals, Sim would perform many new medical surgeries without anesthesia as he deemed the procedure not painful enough to need it. I suspect if someone were, say, ripping chunks out of Sim's ballsack, he'd probably want a couple of fucking painkillers, but hey, they were just slaves, so who gives a shit? Though it's not like anesthesia would have made him any less of a piece of shit, at least it would have been something. You know, for example, I could say, J. Martin Sims is a gigantic fucking pussy, but at least he gave his victims medication unlike the Nazis. You know, something nice like that. Number 12. The Monster Study. Finally, a study that answers the question, can you raise a child evil enough to be such a monster that they would then conduct this experiment? Well, almost. Basically, researchers at the University of Iowa took a group of orphans and gave positive speech therapy to one group and negative speech therapy to the other. Basically meaning they took normally speaking children and told them that they had a stutter. So other than flat out abusing orphan children, the study also left them with speech problems for the rest of their lives. Now we just gotta research the upbringing of these doctors to find out how to make a real fucking monster. Number 11. Irradiating black cancer patients. Another amazing experiment birthed from the horrors of the nuclear arms race. Well, amazingly racist anyways. Fearing the prospect of U.S. citizens being poisoned by radiation in an atomic attack, Dr. Eugene Segner from the University of Cincinnati experimented with exposing 88 poor cancer patients who were mostly black. Oh, and they told them it was a possible cancer treatment too, that's nice. At least a quarter of the patients died from radiation poisoning, and the rest were left with radiation sickness as well as still suffering from cancer. But hey, at least we learned that radiation is bad. Number 10. Irradiating soldiers. But are you sure radiation is bad? Because I'm still not convinced. I think we should test it on another group of unsuspecting patients. Nah, I'm just kidding. They've been doing this shit for decades. They know full well how bad it is. For example, during the Manhattan Project, it's reported that US scientists secretly injected a number of soldiers with both uranium and plutonium in order to test just what the hell it would do floating around in their bodies. Apparently, only 5 of the 18 subjects lived for more than 20 years after having weapons-grade surplus forced into their bloodstream, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? Don't be so paranoid. A little bit of radiation won't hurt you. I mean, it's not like you can see it. Number 9. Infecting Guatemalans with STDs. Alright guys, we need to know if penicillin is really the cure for syphilis, so let's turn loose a bunch of prostitutes in a Guatemalan prison. At least that's what some evil bastard thought was the best way to observe the effects of syphilis and its treatment. 1,500 of the Guatemalans who were purposefully infected were not given any treatment, so the researchers could observe the difference between those who were infected and those who weren't. But hey, only about 80 people died, and they were prisoners anyway, so who gives a fuck? Number 8. The Chamber. The Cold War. The threat of war means it's alright to test poisons on prisoners, right? Well, at least in Soviet Russia it was. Taking gulag prisoners and exposing them to a number of different poisons like ricin and digitoxin was all in the day-to-day for those in the chamber. Soviet secret police were searching for a poison that would be totally undetectable, and killing all those prisoners did eventually give it to them. C2, as it was called, would kill in 15 minutes and, according to witnesses, would somehow cause the victim to become shorter. I feel like the Russians might have made up C2 just to justify all the prisoner poisoning, but hey, what do I know? Don't take me away to the gulag, please. Number 7. Mkultra. Meanwhile, what were the CIA doing during the Cold War? Sending people on mind-controlled drug trips, man, yeah! MKUltras are pretty well-known and almost mythical experiment where the CIA gave lots of people LSD without telling them, then sat back and watched the resulting trip. One operation had the CIA setting up fake brothels and then drugging the prospective clients. While that might sound like a blast, if somebody gives you LSD and you don't know that you're taking it, you're not gonna have a good time. Also, while slipping someone some LSD may not be the most evil thing on this list, we know it was just the tip of a seedy drug-fueled iceberg. Like a crack rock in an ocean of liquid codeine. Number 6. The Aversion Project. Scared of having those evil, sinful, passionate, erotic, sensual, voluptuous homosexuals in your army? Well, lay those fears to rest. South Africa's figured out the most diabolical way to be a homophobe. They used army chaplains to flush out homosexuals, then they would send them to a hospital where they'd be subject to electroshock and chemical castration to cure them. And if that didn't work, they'd forcibly change the sex of the person before sending them back out into the world. So in addition to being a ridiculous, stupid measure, it's also completely delusional. And that's not even the least logical thing. If you didn't like homosexuals, why would you stop them from going out and getting shot to death for your country? Oh golly gee, these people I don't like want to go fight and die for my country. I better put a stop to that. I don't want them homos dying for me. I want to dress them up like girls and put them on the sidewalk. Then I can bang them. Number 5. Tuskegee Syphilis Study. So, remember just how well the last experiment involving syphilis went? Well, this one went much, much worse. Instead of treating some of the people, this study was just, let's see what happens with no treatment. And again, all the patients were black males. In fact, the patients were told that they had bad blood, meaning that they spread syphilis to others, including their future children. Nice work, guys. Hell, even one of the doctors who was involved in Guatemala joined the Tuskegee experiments because I guess he hadn't killed enough people with STDs yet. Number 4. North Korean prison camps. Oh, North Korea. From your state-mandated haircuts to your constant threat of using nuclear weapons, what terrible things could you be up to? Though little information is known, due to North Korea being secretive as all hell, scientists that have defected to the West have told stories about testings of poisons on many Korean prisoners, including feeding them poisoned cabbage for reasons. Wait, why are they poisoning cabbage? They have a food crisis going on. That's a little bit counterproductive, don't you think? I mean, I'm not an evil, tyrannical dictator yet, but if I were, I could probably poison people without having to sneak it into their food. Number 3. Testing Agent Orange. Got a poison you want to spray on your communist enemies, but don't know exactly what it'll do? Just test it on prisoners, cause no one cares about them, right? Agent Orange is a herbicide that the US wanted to use to kill off parts of the dense Vietnamese jungle, but they needed to know what it would do to skin. Enter Dr. Albert Kilgman, who injected 486 times the recommended amount into the skin of American prisoners. This caused the prisoners to break out in the worst acne in history, along with pulsating cysts on their genitals. So, yeah, they figured out what it did. Mission accomplished. Number 2. Unit 731. War seems to bring out the worst in governments, and if that war is World War II, then it's like a human experimentation Christmas. Under Imperial Japanese rule, Unit 731 conducted a number of horrific experiments that included vivisection of living pregnant women, freezing people's limbs, amputating limbs and attaching them to other places, and testing flamethrowers as just some of the things done under the command of Shiro Ishii. Weirdly, Ishii was given immunity by the Americans for the information gained from the experiments, and he lived to a ripe old age. What could we have possibly learned by cutting open pregnant women? I don't get it. Number 1. Nazi concentration camps. Well, we had to get to the Nazis eventually, and I wager you can guess why they took the number 1 spot. Under the care of Dr. Josef Mengele, the Nazis also conducted experiments with freezing living people, live weapons testing, and wound simulation. And by simulation, we mean creating a wound on a prisoner then throwing in broken glass. On top of this was sewing twins together to see if they would merge and become conjoined twins. While both Unit 731 and the Nazis were pretty comparable, these experiments were pretty pointless. Basically just a fancy excuse to torture people and call it science. We know freezing people kills them, we know radiation's bad for us, and we know that there's no practical use for conjoined twins on a battlefield. I could make a joke about conjoined twins being able to watch each other's backs, but let's be real, it was just a fancy way to torture people. It was just something to put on a piece of paper that sounded nice. The Nazis love their documentation, but if you pass around a bunch of documents detailing torture, it makes you feel a little bit less like the good guys, so just call it science because, hey, it's for the good of mankind, right? So anytime you hear the phrase for the better good, your bullshit alarm should start going off immediately. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.